Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Bitter Grounds. Wade Cooper wiped his hands on his coffee-stained apron, breathing in the familiar scent of freshly roasted beans that permeated his Pioneer Square cafe. 15 years of dedication had transformed Copper Bean from a modest cart into a thriving local chain, each callus on his hands marking a milestone in his journey. Just a few more minutes, he muttered, adjusting the temperature on the roaster. The morning light filtered through the cafe's historic brick archways, highlighting the worn wooden counters where he'd served countless cups over the years. The bell above the door chimed as Marcus Chun, his head barista, arrived for the morning shift. "Morning, boss. You're here early." "Couldn't sleep," Wade replied, measuring out beans for their signature morning blend. "Melissa's been acting strange lately." Marcus raised an eyebrow, pulling his apron over his head. "Strange how?" Before Wade could answer, his phone buzzed with a message from Melissa. "Coming by with a special surprise for you." Two hearts. The text's manufactured cheerfulness made Wade's stomach twist. Melissa hadn't shown interest in his coffee shop for months, not since her wellness coaching business had taken off. He'd watched her transform from his supportive wife into someone he'd barely recognized, her conversations now peppered with terms like holistic healing and natural remedies. "Speaking of strange," Wade said, showing Marcus the text. "She hasn't made me coffee since Derek moved in." Marcus's expression darkened at the mention of Wade's brother-in-law. "How's that going? Still temporary?" 3 months and counting. Wade sighed, remembering Derek's smooth explanation about his setback at work. He spends more time with Melissa's clients than looking for a job. The morning routine continued, grinding beans, checking inventory, preparing for the day's rush. Wade found comfort in the familiar rhythm, even as his mind wandered to the changes at home. The garage had become Melissa's makeshift warehouse, filled with boxes of supplements he didn't recognize. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from clients, and hushed conversations with Derek ended abruptly when he entered the room. The bell chimed again. Melissa breezed in, designer yoga pants and perfectly styled hair, contrasting with the cafe's rustic atmosphere. Derek trailed behind her, his casual demeanor masking something Wade couldn't quite place. "Good morning, honey." Melissa's voice carried an artificial sweetness that set Wade's teeth on edge. She placed a travel mug on the counter. "I made you something special." Wade studied the mug, noting the unusual aroma wafting from it. "What's the occasion? Can a wife do something nice for her husband?" Melissa's laugh didn't reach her eyes. "It's my new wellness blend. Derek helped me perfect it." Derek leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. "You're gonna love it, bro, life-changing stuff." Marcus busied himself with the espresso machine, but Wade caught his worried glance. They'd known each other long enough to read the warning in his friend's expression. "Thanks, honey." Wade picked up the mug, watching Derek's subtle smirk. "Why don't you join me? We could all use a morning boost." "Oh, I've already had my green juice," Melissa said quickly. "And Derek's about to go for his run." Wade noticed Derek's fingers tighten around his phone. "Actually, I'd love to try it," he said, reaching for the mug. "No!" Melissa's outburst drew stares from early morning customers. She composed herself quickly. I made it specially for Wade. It's formulated for his energy needs." While Melissa checked her constantly buzzing phone, Wade smoothly switched their mugs, keeping his movements casual. "You're right, I should enjoy this thoughtful gesture." Derek pushed off from the counter. "Better get that run in. Big day ahead." Wade watched them leave, noting how Melissa's hand brushed Derek's arm, a gesture too intimate for siblings-in-law. He waited until they were out of sight before setting the mug aside. "Something's not right," Marcus said quietly, eyeing the mug. "Want me to dump it?" "No." Wade pulled out his phone. "Let's see what happens next." The morning proceeded normally for exactly 27 minutes. Then the siren started. The news alert came through Marcus's phone first. Medical emergency in Pioneer Square. Male jogger collapsed during morning run. Wade recognized the location, Derek's usual route. "Boss?" Marcus held up his phone, showing the live coverage of paramedics loading a familiar figure into an ambulance. Wade's phone rang, Melissa's number flashing on the screen. He let it go to voicemail, watching the emergency response through his cafe window. Swedish Medical Center was only minutes away. The ambulance's urgency suggested something severe. The rest of the morning brought a stream of texts and calls from Melissa, each more frantic than the last. Wade responded minimally, his mind racing through years of coffee knowledge. He recognized the medicinal smell from Melissa's special blend, an obscure South American herb he'd researched years ago for its caffeine-like properties, ultimately rejecting it as too dangerous for commercial use. As the morning rush slowed, a familiar face appeared at the counter. Sarah Palmer, one of his regular customers, clutched her tablet with unusual intensity. "Wade, do you have a minute?" Her voice was low, urgent. In private, he led her to his office, noting how she checked to ensure the door was closed. Sarah had been coming to Copper Bean for years. He knew she worked in pharmaceutical research, though they'd never discussed details. "I saw the news about Derek," she began, pulling up articles on her tablet. "The symptoms, they're distinctive. We've seen them before." Wade leaned forward as Sarah explained about an FDA investigation in California. Deaths linked to fake cancer treatments, herbs marketed as miracle cures. The same herbs he'd smelled in Melissa's special coffee. "These aren't just supplements," Sarah whispered, showing him chemical analyses. "They're dangerous, especially in concentrated doses. Someone's been using them to scam desperate people, selling false hope at premium prices." Wade's phone buzzed again. Melissa posting on social media about her beloved brother's mysterious illness. The comments flooded in immediately, sympathetic responses from her wellness community. "Check this out," Marcus called from the main room. He'd pulled up Melissa's business profile, where she'd just announced a new product line, Revival Botanicals. Wade returned to his office, pulling up the security footage from that morning. He zoomed in on Derek's phone just before they left. Not the panic texting of someone about to collapse, but rapid, purposeful messages. The timestamps aligned perfectly with a notification Wade had ignored earlier, a substantial transfer from his business account to a new LLC. "There's more," Sarah said, scrolling through her tablet. "These herbs, they're addictive. People start with small doses, thinking they're natural supplements. By the time they realize something's wrong." Wade thought about the boxes in his garage, the late-night meetings, the sudden surge in Melissa's client base. Everything clicked in a place of a perfectly timed espresso shot. "Thank you, Sarah," he said quietly. "I think I need to make some calls." After she left, Wade sat in his office, surrounded by the scent of coffee and betrayal. The morning's events played through his mind. Melissa's forced cheerfulness, Derek's knowing smirk, the carefully orchestrated collapse. They'd planned it all, down to the last detail. He picked up his phone, scrolling through months of messages, seeing patterns he'd missed before. Melissa's transformation from supportive wife to wellness guru hadn't been sudden. It had been calculated, with Derek pulling strings behind the scenes. "Boss?" Marcus knocked gently. "You okay?" Wade looked up at his friend, seeing concern in his eyes. "No," he admitted, "but I will be." He stood up, straightening his apron. The afternoon crowd would be arriving soon, seeking their daily dose of carefully crafted coffee. Wade had spent 15 years building something real, something honest. He knew every bean, roast, customer's preference. Melissa and Derek had chosen the wrong business to infiltrate. They thought they understood manipulation, but Wade understood something far more powerful: patience. Like the perfect cup of coffee, revenge was all about the timing. Chapter 2: The Grind. The security camera footage played on Wade's laptop, casting a blue glow across his office. He'd been reviewing the tapes for hours, watching months of interactions between Melissa and Derek with new eyes. The timestamps told a story of late-night meetings, hushed conversations, and suspicious deliveries to the garage. Tommy Nguyen perched on a stool beside him, his fingers flying across his own keyboard. The teenager's presence was a stroke of luck. His father, Min, had been Wade's primary coffee supplier for over a decade. "Look at this," Tommy said, pointing to his screen. "The encryption's good, but not good enough." Decoded emails filled the screen, revealing conversations between Melissa and Derek that made Wade's blood run cold. Their wellness coaching business was more organized than he'd imagined. A carefully structured scheme targeting vulnerable people with promises of miracle cures. They're planning to franchise, Tommy noted, scrolling through documents. There's something here called the Phoenix Protocol. Looks like they've done this before. Wade leaned back in his chair, processing the information. The cafe had closed hours ago, but Marcus still lingered, cleaning equipment with unusual thoroughness. Wade noticed his friend's hands shaking slightly as he polished the espresso machine. "Marcus?" Wade called out. "Everything okay?" Marcus set down the cleaning cloth, his expression troubled. "I need to show you something." He disappeared into the back room, returning with a worn photo album. "Remember when I took that week off last year? It wasn't for vacation." He opened the album to a photograph of a young woman, her smile bright despite her obvious illness. "This is my sister, Mai. She was one of Melissa's first clients." Wade felt his stomach drop as Marcus continued. "It was in Phoenix under a different name. Mai had stage 2 breast cancer. Melissa, she called herself Michelle back then, convinced her to try alternative treatments instead of chemotherapy." The photo album trembled in Marcus's hands. "I never made the connection until I saw her photo in your wedding album. By the time I realized the treatments weren't working," his voice cracked. "It was too late." Wade placed a steadying hand on his friend's shoulder, pieces clicking into place. "That's why you've been watching them so closely." "I should have said something sooner," Marcus whispered. "When Derek moved in, I started recognizing patterns. The way they talked to clients, the promises they made." Tommy's keyboard clicked rapidly. "Found something about Derek's setback at work." "It wasn't a setback. It was embezzlement. Over $1 million. Wade pulled up an article about Derek's former workplace, a financial services firm in Portland. The company's mysterious downsizing had made local news, but the real story had been buried under confidentiality agreements. His boss, Richard Knox, Tommy read, resigned shortly after. "Lives in Tacoma now. Can you find an address?" Wade asked. The next morning, Wade drove to a rundown apartment complex in Tacoma's industrial district. Richard Knox barely resembled his company photo. The sharp suit replaced by wrinkled clothes, success dulled by defeat. "Didn't expect anyone to find me here," Knox said, inviting Wade into his sparse apartment. Empty bottles lined the kitchenette counter. "Especially not Derek Sullivan's brother-in-law." "I need to know what really happened," Wade said. Knox laughed bitterly. "What happened?" "Your brother-in-law destroyed everything I spent 30 years building. Convinced our biggest clients to invest in his special opportunities. When the money disappeared, he had paperwork showing I'd authorized everything. Why didn't you press charges?" "Embarrassment. Fear." Knox poured himself a drink with shaking hands. He had dirt on everyone. Personal stuff, family secrets. Said if I went public, he'd destroy more than just my career. Wade drove back to Seattle, his mind racing. The special coffee incident wasn't just about him. It was part of a larger pattern. He pulled into a pharmacy parking lot, calling Sarah Palmer. "Those herbs they're using," he said when she answered. "Could they build up a tolerance with regular exposure?" "Theoretically, yes," Sarah replied. "Small doses over time might wait." "Have you been exposed?" Wade thought about months of strange-tasting coffee samples Melissa had asked him to try. His habit of testing new blends with customers had unknowingly saved his life, diluting what should have been a fatal dose. Back at Copper Bean, Tommy had more discoveries. "They've been planning this for months," he said, showing Wade financial records. "Small transfers building up to something bigger." The day Derek collapsed, they registered 3 new LLCs. Wade's phone buzzed. Another social media update from Melissa about Derek's recovery. Her posts had gained thousands of followers, each sympathetic comment boosting her wellness coaching profile. "She's using this," Marcus observed, scrolling through the responses. "Every post brings in new clients." Wade watched his wife's perfectly curated online presence, seeing the manipulation behind each carefully worded update. Melissa and Derek had orchestrated everything, from the poisoning attempt to the public collapse, building their brand on manufactured tragedy. The betrayal ran deeper than he'd imagined. They hadn't just tried to kill him. They planned to use his death to launch their national expansion. His life insurance policy, Copper Bean's assets, even his customer base would have fueled their scheme. "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked quietly. Wade looked around his cafe, at the business he'd built through years of honest work. The morning light caught the copper fixtures he'd installed himself, highlighting the care in every detail. "First," he said, "we gather evidence. Then, we make sure they never hurt anyone else." Tommy cracked his knuckles, grinning. "I can help with that. Dad always says the best coffee takes time to brew." Wade nodded, a plan forming in his mind. Melissa and Derek thought they understood deception, but they'd never faced someone with nothing left to lose. They'd tried to use his passion against him. Now he would show them the true meaning of craftsmanship. "Marcus," he called. "Remember that customer who used to work in private investigation? Ruby Martinez? She still comes in for her afternoon Americano. Call her. Tell her I need her expertise." Wade turned to Tommy. "Keep digging. I want to know everything about their operation. Past, present, and future plans." The cafe's espresso machine hissed, a sound that had always reminded Wade of a snake's warning. How fitting, he thought, watching another of Melissa's perfectly staged social media posts appear on his phone. They'd chosen coffee as their weapon, not knowing it was his armor. Every cup he'd served, every bean he'd roasted, had taught him patience. Now, that patience would become their undoing. Chapter 3. Fresh Pour. The Portland Wellness Retreat brochure lay open on Wade's desk, its glossy pages promising transformation and healing. Ruby Martinez sat across from him, her investigator's notebook filled with detailed observations. "Their expansion plans are ambitious," Ruby said, tapping the brochure. 10 franchises in the first year, each with its own wellness coach trained in their methods. Her voice carried personal weight. Her mother had lost her life savings to a similar scam in California. Wade studied the investment prospectus Tommy had uncovered. "They're looking for silent partners. People with money who won't ask too many questions. That's where I come in?" Ruby raised an eyebrow. "Not exactly." Wade pulled out a stack of corporation papers. "I've already reached out to their potential investors through these." Ruby whistled as she flipped through the documents. "Shell companies within shell companies. Your years in business loans paid off." "Copper Bean's expansion taught me a few things about corporate structure," Wade admitted. "But I need your help with something else." He explained his plan while Ruby took notes, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine admiration. "This is personal for you," she observed. "It's personal for all of us," Wade replied, thinking of Marcus's sister, Ruby's mother, and countless others who'd fallen victim to similar schemes. The cafe door chimed, announcing an unexpected visitor. Grace Sullivan, Derek's college sweetheart, clutched a worn leather briefcase as she approached the counter. "Mr. Cooper?" Her voice trembled slightly. "I saw the news about Derek's collapse. There's something you need to know." Wade led her to his office, where Ruby still sat reviewing documents. Grace's fingers worked nervously at the briefcase's clasp. "He did this before," she said, pulling out a stack of yellowed papers. "At our church and college. Dietary supplements for the elderly congregation members. When I found out and threatened to expose him," she swallowed hard. "The blackmail started. He had photos, manipulated conversations, enough to destroy my reputation in the community." Ruby leaned forward, professional interest peaked. "You kept records?" "Everything." Grace spread the documents across Wade's desk. Bank statements, email printouts, even recorded conversations where he bragged about how easy it was to manipulate people. "I couldn't use any of it because of his threats, but I couldn't bring myself to destroy it either." Wade examined a faded receipt. "These supplements, they're similar to what Melissa's selling now. Similar concept, different packaging." Grace pulled out more papers. "He always targeted vulnerable people. The elderly, the terminally ill, anyone desperate enough to believe in miracles. Sarah Palmer chose that moment to arrive, carrying lab results from her analysis of Melissa's supplements. Her eyes widened at the spread of documents. "This is perfect timing," Wade said, making introductions. "Sarah's been analyzing their current products." Sarah laid her reports alongside Grace's documents. "The herbs they're using aren't just dangerous, they're addictive. Small doses create dependency, making clients reliant on regular treatments. It's brilliant in a horrifying way. Just like the church scheme, Grace noted. The elderly members became convinced they couldn't function without their daily supplements. Ruby photographed everything, her trained eye catching crucial details. These patterns could help us track their other operations. Derek's temporary setback probably wasn't his first corporate theft either. Wade's phone buzzed, another update from Melissa about Derek's miraculous recovery. The comment section filled with potential clients, each sharing stories of health struggles and desperate hopes. Look at this, Tommy called from his laptop. Melissa's mother died from cancer years ago. She refused traditional treatment for alternative medicine. Sarah peered at the obituary Tommy had found. The practitioner who treated her mother disappeared with their savings shortly after her death. That's where she learned these tactics. She watched them work firsthand. She's not just copying the scam, Ruby realized. She's perfected it. The social media presence, the wellness coaching certification, the carefully crafted image. It's all designed to appear legitimate. Wade thought about the herbs in his garage, the constant client meetings, the way Melissa and Derek had worked to isolate him from their operation. They'd built their scheme right under his nose, using his success as cover for their fraud. Grace, he said quietly, would you be willing to testify about Derek's past? She shook her head, fear crossing her features. His threats still stand. He has too much power, too many connections. What if you didn't have to? Ruby suggested. What if we could use your evidence without putting you at risk? Wade nodded, understanding forming. We build a case they can't threaten or manipulate away. Not just for legal action, for complete exposure. Sarah gathered her reports. I can publish my findings on their supplements anonymously. Medical journals are always interested in exposing dangerous alternative treatments. And I can track their financial movements, Tommy added. Every transaction, shell company, hidden account. Marcus, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. What about their current clients? The people they're hurting right now? Wade looked at his friend, remembering the pain of his sister's loss. That's where we start. Ruby, can you compile a list of their victims? Not just current clients. Everyone they've hurt, in every city, under every business name. Grace hesitated, then opened her briefcase again. I have names from the church scheme. People who lost their savings but were too ashamed to come forward. Build the evidence quietly, Wade instructed. Let them think they're succeeding. The Portland retreat is their chance to expand. It'll also be their chance to face everything they've done. The group dispersed, each with their own tasks. Wade remained in his office, surrounded by the proof of years of deception. His coffee shop had always been about bringing people together, creating moments of connection over perfectly crafted drinks. Now it would serve a different purpose, bringing justice to those who'd turned connection into exploitation. He picked up one of Grace's documents, a younger Derek boasting about manipulating an elderly widow's faith for profit. Beside it lay Sarah's analysis of the herbs that had nearly killed him. The same patterns, refined and repeated, leaving a trail of destroyed lives. Melissa's latest social media post showed her at Derek's hospital bedside, perfectly composed in designer athletic wear, speaking about healing journeys and natural wellness. The comments praised her strength and dedication. Wade closed his laptop, the pieces of his plan falling into place. They tried to use his passion against him, not understanding that coffee wasn't just his business. It was his art. Like the perfect roast, revenge required precise timing, careful preparation, and most importantly, patience. The morning sun cast copper reflections across his desk, highlighting the evidence of their betrayal. But unlike their victims, Wade wasn't desperate or alone. He had truth on his side, and a growing network of allies who understood the true cost of Melissa and Derek's ambitions. The cafe's morning rush would start soon. Wade straightened his apron, ready to serve another day's worth of carefully crafted coffee. Each cup represented 15 years of honest work, of building something real. He would use that same dedication to dismantle their lies, one precisely measured step at a time. His phone buzzed again, Melissa, asking when he'd visit Derek in the hospital. Wade smiled, composing a response that revealed nothing of his knowledge or plans. Let them think they'd succeeded. The perfect brew was worth the wait. Chapter 4. Dark Roast. The Portland Wellness Retreat hummed with anticipation. In the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel, Melissa stood before a crowd of potential investors, her designer suit and confident smile masking the tension in her shoulders. Revival Botanicals isn't just a business, she proclaimed, gesturing to the sleek presentation behind her. It's a movement, a revolution in natural healing. From his position near the back, Marcus Chun recorded everything on his phone, disguised as an eager franchise prospect. He caught Derek's occasional glances toward the exit, noting how his hand trembled slightly when raising his water glass. Ruby Martinez sat in the front row, her pharmaceutical sales background lending authenticity to her role as a potential investor. Her tablet captured each claim, each promise, each carefully worded guarantee. Our proprietary blends, Derek added, stepping forward to support his sister, have shown remarkable results in preliminary trials. Wade watched the performance through the hotel's security feed, set up in a suite 6 floors above. Tommy Nguyen's fingers flew across his keyboard, archiving every moment. "Look at this," Tommy said, pointing to his screen. "They're already setting up shell companies for the franchises. Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, classic tax havens." Sarah Palmer entered the suite, carrying lab reports. The samples from their demonstration table are even more concentrated than what they tried to use on you, Wade. They're getting bolder. The presentation continued below, with Melissa and Derek tag-teaming their pitch. They perfected their routine. Melissa provided the inspirational story, while Derek handled the financial projections. "Mrs. Anderson's looking pale," Ruby texted Wade. Mrs. Anderson, actually Jennifer Martinez, an investigative journalist Wade had contacted, was playing her role perfectly. Right on cue, Mrs. Anderson swayed in her seat. "I feel strange," she announced, her voice carrying across the ballroom. The ensuing chaos revealed the first cracks in Melissa and Derek's facade. Their practiced composure slipped as they argued about proper dosages, their voices carrying to the strategically placed microphones. "You said the new formula was stable," Melissa hissed at Derek. "Don't blame me for your measurements," Derek shot back. "I told you we needed more testing." The medical response team, arranged by Wade through Sarah's connections, arrived promptly. Mrs. Anderson's symptoms matched those of Derek's earlier collapse, sparking worried whispers among the investors. In the suite, Wade received an unexpected call. "Mr. Cooper?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Janet Wright." Ruby Martinez said you wanted to talk about Derek Sullivan. "Ms. Wright," Wade replied, watching Derek pace nervously on the security feed. "Thank you for reaching out. I understand you have some history with my brother-in-law." Janet's bitter laugh crackled through the speaker. "History is one word for it. I signed his confidentiality agreement, but after seeing the news about his wellness business, let's just say I'm willing to risk the consequences." As Janet shared her story, Wade signaled Tommy to record everything. Derek's ex-wife painted a familiar picture: manipulation, gaslighting, stolen money, and ruined lives. "He used my nursing credentials," Janet revealed. "Set up fake consultations, claimed I'd validated his treatments. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd already moved on to his next scheme." The afternoon sessions resumed with decreased attendance. Wade's planted victims, carefully selected through Ruby's investigation, took their positions throughout the crowd. Each one triggered visible reactions from Melissa and Derek. A flinch here, a double take there. "The woman in the blue blazer," Marcus texted. Derek recognized her. "He's sweating?" Wade checked the roster. Patricia Chun, no relation to Marcus, had lost her retirement fund to one of Derek's investment schemes in Phoenix. She'd been too ashamed to press charges, but now she sat in the front row, taking detailed notes. Tommy's surveillance caught Melissa making frantic phone calls during breaks. "She's trying to access their emergency accounts," he reported. "But I've flagged all their known finances. Any large transactions will trigger automatic alerts." The real surprise came when Wade discovered Melissa's secret recordings. Through Tommy's digital forensics, they found dozens of edited conversations stored in cloud accounts. "She's been planning this for months," Tommy said, playing clips where Wade's words had been carefully spliced to sound threatening. "Building a defense in case you ever caught on." Can you access everything? Wade asked. Tommy grinned. Already done? And look what else I found, their original recordings. The ones showing their real conversations about your accident. The day sessions wrapped up with Derek drinking heavily at the hotel bar, while Melissa obsessively checked her phone. Their perfectly choreographed performance had developed noticeable flaws. In Wade's suite, his team gathered to review their progress. Sarah's lab analysis had confirmed the dangerous additives in their supplements. Ruby's background checks had revealed more victims willing to come forward. Marcus's recordings provided evidence of their fraudulent claims. Tomorrow's the big investment pitch, Ruby reminded them. Are we ready? Wade looked at his assembled allies, each one driven by their own experience with Melissa and Derek's manipulation. They think they're presenting to potential partners, he said. Instead, they'll face everyone they've tried to silence. The hotel lobby buzzed with attendees discussing the day's events. Melissa maintained her composed smile, but her knuckles whitened around her phone as another investment group canceled their meeting. Derek's smooth charm had taken on a desperate edge as he tried to salvage their relationships. Wade watched it all through the security feeds, remembering the morning Melissa had tried to poison him. They thought him an easy target, not realizing they'd chosen the wrong person to betray. Like the perfect roast, revenge required precise timing and careful attention to detail. One more thing, Tommy called, pointing to the screen. You need to see these emails from their cloud storage. The messages revealed conversations about Wade's planned accident, discussing dosages and timing with clinical detachment. More disturbing were their plans for using his death to launch their national expansion, his life insurance payout already allocated to new ventures. Keep monitoring everything, Wade instructed his team. Tomorrow, we show them exactly who they're dealing with. Chapter 5, Pressure Build. The second day of the retreat brought new tensions. Melissa paced the conference room before her morning presentation, her usual poise disrupted by notifications on her phone. Anonymous donations had appeared in Cancer Research Foundation accounts, donations matching exact amounts from her client records. This is impossible, she muttered, scrolling through the transaction details Ruby had carefully orchestrated. Derek, we need to talk. Now. In the hotel's coffee shop, Derek nursed a hangover while attempting to placate increasingly skeptical investors. His practiced charm faltered as questions grew more pointed. These financial projections, a silver-haired investor said, tapping the proposal, they seem optimistic given the FDA's recent interest in alternative treatments. Sarah Palmer's medical journal submission, fast-tracked through her professional network, had landed with perfect timing. The study detailed the dangers of specific herb combinations, matching Revival Botanicals' proprietary blend without naming them directly. Pure coincidence, Derek assured the group, his smile strained. Our formulations are completely different. Wade monitored the situation from his command center, where Tommy tracked their digital panic. They're trying to access their emergency accounts, the young hacker reported. But they're finding some interesting discrepancies. Ruby's forensic accounting had revealed Derek's private embezzlement from their joint operation. Wade composed a carefully worded anonymous tip to Melissa, adding pressure to their already strained relationship. Look at this, Marcus called, reviewing his morning footage. They're arguing about missing funds. Melissa just accused Derek of skimming from their consulting fees. The wellness community's online forums buzzed with anonymous reviews linking Revival Botanicals to deaths in Phoenix. Ruby's network of former pharmaceutical representatives spread the information. Their damage control is falling apart, Ruby noted, monitoring social media responses. Former clients are starting to ask questions publicly. Melissa's afternoon presentation showed cracks in her composed facade. Her hands shook slightly as she discussed their expansion plans, her responses to questions becoming increasingly defensive. Our success rate speaks for itself, she insisted, avoiding specific statistics. Our clients experience remarkable transformations. Like my chun, Marcus's question from the audience struck like a thunderbolt. My sister followed your protocol in Phoenix. She died believing in your promises. The room fell silent. Melissa's practiced smile froze as she recognized Marcus, not as Wade's barista, but as the brother of a victim she'd tried to forget. That That was a different situation, she stammered. Each case is unique. Derek stepped in, attempting to redirect the conversation, but the damage was done. Investors exchanged concerned glances. Phones appeared as people began researching Phoenix wellness scandals. In the back of the room, Sarah Palmer distributed copies of her published study to key industry figures. The scientific evidence, combined with Marcus's emotional testimony, created a devastating 1-2 punch. Tommy's surveillance caught Derek making frantic calls during the next break. He's trying to access offshore accounts, the young hacker reported. But they're finding some unexpected restrictions. Wade had anticipated this move. His corporate banking experience had helped him place subtle barriers around their emergency funds, each attempted access revealing more suspicious patterns to financial regulators. Their last 5 transfers were flagged for review, Ruby confirmed, checking her banking contacts. The compliance departments are asking questions they can't answer. Melissa's social media presence, usually carefully curated, showed signs of strain. Her posts about the retreat's success competed with growing online discussions about wellness industry fraud. The hashtag we created is trending, Tommy reported. Hashtag Wellness Scam Watch. It's being picked up by health advocacy groups. Wade received updates from his planted investors throughout the day. Each one reported increasing desperation in private meetings, with Derek's sales pitch becoming more aggressive and Melissa's promises more extravagant. They offered me exclusive territory rights, one investor messaged. At a suspicious discount. Derek suggested some creative financing options, another reported. When I mentioned regulatory compliance, he changed the subject. The pressure peaked during the evening networking session. Derek, drinking heavily at the hotel bar, began arguing loudly with Melissa about their dwindling options. You said this was foolproof, he slurred, gesturing with his glass. Now we're hemorrhaging investors because you can't keep your story straight. Me? Melissa hissed, grabbing his arm. Who's been stealing from our operations account? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Ruby recorded their argument discreetly, while Marcus maintained his cover by discussing franchise opportunities with rattled potential partners. I'm hearing similar stories from other wellness retreats, Sarah added, her medical credentials lending weight to the growing concerns. These supplement combinations are raising serious red flags in the research community. Wade's team gathered again that evening, reviewing their progress. The pressure campaign had exceeded expectations, revealing vulnerabilities in Melissa and Derek's partnership. Their whole operation depends on maintaining a perfect image, Ruby observed. Once that cracks, it's already cracking, Marcus said, playing back footage of Derek's increasingly erratic behavior. The question is, what's their breaking point? Wade studied the security feeds, showing Melissa and Derek retreating to their respective rooms, their confident facades crumbling in private. Tomorrow, he said, we show them exactly what it feels like to lose everything they've built on lies. The pieces were in place. Like a perfectly timed pour over premium beans, each element would contribute to the final result. Wade thought about his years building Copperbean, creating something real and valuable. Melissa and Derek had tried to destroy that. Now they would understand the true cost of betrayal. Chapter 6, Temperature Spike. The retreat's final day dawned with an unexpected arrival. Grace Sullivan strode into the hotel lobby, her presence sending visible shockwaves through Derek's morning sales pitch. You can't be here, Derek hissed, abandoning his investors mid-sentence. We had an agreement. Agreements change, Grace replied, her voice carrying to Ruby's strategically placed microphones. Like when you use people's life savings to fund your schemes. Wade watched from his suite as Derek and Melissa huddled in an emergency conference. Their whispered argument, captured by Tommy's surveillance, revealed growing desperation. Pay her off, Melissa urged. We can't afford another scandal right now. Derek's response was bitter. With what money? Our accounts are being watched. Each withdrawal raises more questions. Grace's appearance had been carefully orchestrated. Her threat to expose their past scams forced them to empty their emergency fund, money that through Ruby's arrangements would quietly find its way to their victims' families. The morning's disruption was just beginning. Richard Knox, Derek's former boss, arrived during the investment presentations. Months of rehabilitation, funded through Wade's discreet assistance, had restored his confidence and determination. "Mr. Sullivan," Knox's voice cut through Derek's sales pitch. "I believe we have unfinished business regarding the missing client funds." Derek's smooth facade cracked. "Rick? This isn't. We resolved that." "No," Knox stated firmly, holding up documentation Wade had helped him compile. "We didn't. But we will." The timing aligned perfectly with Sarah Palmer's presentation to the retreat's organizing committee. Her findings about the supplement's addictive properties, backed by rigorous laboratory analysis, devastated Revival Botanical's credibility. "These compounds," Sarah explained to the horrified committee members, "create dependency through carefully calibrated doses. Users experience withdrawal symptoms if they stop, interpreting this as proof they need the treatments." Melissa attempted damage control, but her usual composure had vanished. "Our formulations are completely natural," she protested weakly. "Natural doesn't mean safe," Sarah countered, displaying molecular diagrams. "Hemlock is natural. So is deadly nightshade." The exodus of investors began as a trickle, then became a flood. Tommy tracked their outgoing emails, each one canceling commitments and withdrawing support. During a private dinner that evening, Derek's paranoia boiled over. He confronted Wade in the hotel restaurant, his accusations fueled by desperation and alcohol. "You're behind this," he snarled, pointing an unsteady finger. "All of it. The donations, the accounts, Grace showing up." Wade sipped his coffee, letting the rich aroma remind him of everything he'd built. "Interesting theory. Can you prove it?" Derek's frustration mounted as he realized the trap he'd walked into. Each piece of evidence he could cite would reveal another aspect of their own crimes. Melissa, watching her empire crumble, made her choice. She sided with Derek, publicly accusing Wade of orchestrating a campaign against them. "He's jealous of our success," she announced to their remaining supporters. "He's trying to destroy what we've built because he can't stand seeing me succeed independently." It was exactly what Wade had anticipated. Their predictable response completed his strategy, positioning them exactly where he needed them. Wade's phone buzzed, a signal from Tommy. Their last desperate investor, the one they'd counted on to save their operation, had just made contact. "The funds are ready for transfer," the investor assured Melissa and Derek. They didn't know he was an undercover investigator Wade had placed months ago. As they celebrated their apparent salvation in the hotel bar, Wade made his final move. A single phone call triggered a cascade of regulatory actions, freezing their accounts pending investigation of suspicious patterns of financial activity. The complaint had come from within their own organization, documentation provided by their trusted new investor detailing years of fraudulent practices. Tommy monitored their panic reactions through the hotel's security system. "They're trying to access everything at once," he reported. Each attempt triggers another security flag. Melissa's carefully maintained social media presence imploded as she tried to counter the growing scandal. Her posts became increasingly frantic, each explanation digging a deeper hole. Derek, realizing the extent of their exposure, began destroying documents in his hotel room. He didn't know Tommy had already preserved copies of everything through their compromised cloud storage. "Should we stop him?" Marcus asked, watching the security feed. "Let him panic," Ruby advised. "Each deleted file makes them look more guilty." The night ended with Melissa and Derek huddled in her suite, their polished image in tatters. Wade's surveillance caught their desperate planning. Each proposed escape route already anticipated and blocked. "We could restart somewhere else," Derek suggested, his voice slurred with defeat. "Different names, different products. They've poisoned our reputation in the entire industry," Melissa responded, scrolling through endless negative comments. "Who would trust us now?" Wade gathered his team one final time, each member having played their part perfectly. Like a master barista crafting the perfect blend, he had combined their talents to achieve precisely the right result. "What happens tomorrow?" Marcus asked, reviewing their gathered evidence. "They'll try to salvage what they can," Ruby predicted. "But their credibility is gone. The wellness community talks. By morning, everyone will know." Wade studied the security feeds one last time. Melissa and Derek's desperate planning session had devolved into blame and recrimination. Their unified facade had cracked completely, revealing the opportunistic alliance beneath. Sarah Palmer's report had spread through the retreat's professional network, prompting concerned messages from wellness industry leaders. The scientific evidence of their supplements' addictive properties couldn't be explained away with smooth talk and marketing spin. Their last investor just pulled out, Tommy reported, monitoring their email traffic. The transfer was canceled before it could process. In their suite, Melissa's composure finally shattered. "This is your fault," she snapped at Derek. "Your sloppiness, your drinking, your embezzling. You ruins everything you touch." "My fault?" Derek's bitter laugh carried through the surveillance feed. "Who came up with the formula? Who insisted we could handle bigger doses? Your ambition made you sloppy, sister dear." Wade watched their alliance dissolve, remembering the morning they'd tried to poison him. They'd thought themselves clever, not realizing they'd targeted someone who understood the true meaning of patience and precision. The hotel's night manager appeared in the security feed, responding to noise complaints from neighboring rooms. Melissa and Derek's heated argument had drawn unwanted attention, their private drama becoming embarrassingly public. "Mr. Cooper?" Ruby called from her laptop. "You should see these messages from their remaining clients. They're demanding refunds, threatening legal action. The whole network is imploding." The Wellness Retreat's organizing committee had called an emergency meeting, discussing the implications of Sarah's revelations. Their reputation was at stake. Hosting an event where fraudulent supplements were promoted could damage their standing in the industry. "They're being asked to leave," Marcus reported from the lobby. "The committee wants them gone before tomorrow's closing sessions." Wade gathered his team for a final briefing. Each member had played their role perfectly. Ruby's investigative skills, Tommy's technical expertise, Marcus's inside knowledge, and Sarah's scientific credibility had combined to create an inescapable trap. "What about Grace and Knox?" Tommy asked, watching the surveillance feeds. "They've done their parts," Wade replied. Grace's appearance forced them to deplete their emergency funds. Knox's confrontation destroyed any chance of maintaining professional credibility. The night deepened, but Wade's surveillance showed no signs of Melissa and Derek finding rest. They paced their rooms, made frantic calls, and watched their carefully constructed world crumble. In the hotel bar, Derek drank alone, his phone buzzing with increasingly panicked messages from former associates. Each notification brought news of another contact distancing themselves, another opportunity dissolving. Melissa's social media accounts, usually pristine and professional, showed signs of desperation. Her attempts to counter the growing scandal only drew more attention to their questionable practices. "Their cloud storage is being purged," Tommy noted. "But we've got everything backed up." Each deleted file makes them look more guilty. Wade thought about his years building Copperbean, the care he'd put into each blend, each roast, each customer relationship. Melissa and Derek had tried to destroy something authentic with their fraudulent schemes. Now they understood the cost of targeting someone who valued genuine craftsmanship. The security feeds showed their final attempts at damage control failing. Emergency calls went unanswered. Emails bounced back unread. Their carefully cultivated network of influence dissolved in the face of mounting evidence. "Boss!" Marcus's voice carried concern. "There's something else you should see." The footage showed Melissa making one last desperate move, attempting to frame Wade for their fraud. But her edited recordings, meant to paint him as the mastermind, had already been discredited by Tommy's recovery of the original files. The night ended with Melissa and Derek's complete professional collapse. Their polished image, built on manipulation and false promises, had shattered beyond repair. In their separate rooms, they faced the reality of their situation. No allies, no resources, no escape routes. Wade's team dispersed, their missions accomplished. Like a perfectly crafted cup of coffee, each element had contributed to the final result. The pressure had built precisely as planned, revealing the true nature of those who'd thought themselves master manipulators. In his hotel room, Wade reviewed the day's events. The sight of Melissa and Derek's desperation brought no joy, only the satisfaction of seeing justice served. They had tried to use his passion against him, not understanding that true craftsmanship always overcomes deception. The Portland Wellness Retreat had begun as their stage for expansion. It ended as the scene of their professional destruction. Wade's patient planning had ensured that each revelation, each confrontation, each piece of evidence landed with maximum impact. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, Wade could rest knowing that his careful preparation had yielded the perfect result. Like the finest coffee blend, revenge was best served at precisely the right temperature. Chapter 7. Full Body. Melissa stared at her laptop screen, her manicured nails clicking frantically against the keyboard. Access denied flashed across another banking portal, the fifth one that morning. Each apparent escape route led to another dead end. Try the Cayman account, Derek urged, pacing behind her. We still have the emergency transfers from last quarter. Blocked. Melissa's voice cracked. They're all blocked. Someone's redirecting everything to accounts we can't touch. In his Seattle office, Wade monitored their desperate attempts through Tommy's surveillance network. The young hacker had created an elegant maze of digital barriers, each one steering them deeper into financial isolation. They're trying to contact their lawyers now, Tommy reported, fingers dancing across his keyboard. But watch this. The calls connected to attorneys Wade had carefully briefed months ago. Each conversation ended the same way. Polite refusals cloaked in professional courtesy. Mr. Sullivan, given the circumstances, our firm cannot represent you at this time, one lawyer explained, his voice carrying through the surveillance feed. The potential conflicts of interest are insurmountable. Ruby entered Wade's office, carrying fresh intelligence from her network. The media campaign is ready. Each victim's story has been fact-checked and verified. We start with Marcus's sister. The first news segment aired that evening, a special report on alternative medicine fraud. Mai Chen's story, told through her brother's grief, painted a devastating picture of manipulation and false hope. She believed in them completely, Marcus said on camera, his composed demeanor making the story more powerful. By the time we realized the treatments weren't working, the cancer had spread too far. Tommy monitored social media reactions. It's spreading faster than we expected. Health advocacy groups are picking it up, sharing similar stories. Wade's phone buzzed with updates from Sarah Palmer. Her analysis of their supplements had been published in a leading medical journal, the scientific evidence providing a foundation for the growing scandal. The paper links their formula directly to 3 deaths in California, Sarah explained. The FDA is launching a formal investigation. In their hotel suite, Melissa and Derek watched their empire crumble in real time. Tommy's backdoors in their systems have preserved copies of everything: client records, financial transactions, private messages discussing dosages and effects. Delete everything, Derek demanded, his voice slurring from another bottle of overpriced bourbon. Wipe the servers clean? It's too late, Melissa whispered, staring at her phone. Look at this, someone's releasing our old emails. The ones about Wade's accident. Ruby coordinated with news outlets, ensuring each revelation built on the previous ones. The pattern of fraud across 3 states emerged clearly, supported by Janet's documentation and Marcus's sister's case. The Phoenix operations were just the beginning, Ruby told reporters. Each city showed the same pattern: vulnerable clients, miracle promises, devastating results. Wade's team gathered in his office, monitoring the unfolding destruction. Like a master roaster controlling temperature and timing, he had orchestrated each element perfectly. Their cloud storage is being purged, Tommy noted, watching lines of code scroll across his screen. But we've got everything backed up. Each deletion attempt creates another evidence trail. Sarah's medical journal publication sparked intense discussion in the wellness industry. Professional organizations distanced themselves from Revival Botanicals, their statements citing the disturbing evidence of harmful practices. The supplement combinations weren't just ineffective, Sarah explained to medical reporters. They were designed to create dependency. The victims became convinced they couldn't survive without these treatments. Wade reviewed footage from their security cameras. Melissa and Derek's desperate attempts to destroy evidence only reinforced their guilt. Each frantic phone call, each deleted file, each failed escape attempt had been anticipated and channeled. Look at this, Ruby called, pointing to her laptop. News stations across the country had picked up the story. Wellness scam epidemic dominated headlines, with Marcus's sister's case providing the human element that captured public attention. Each victim interviewed mentions the same patterns, Ruby noted. The initial consultation, the gradual isolation from family, the increasing financial demands. It's all documented. Tommy's cybersecurity skills proved crucial as Melissa and Derek tried to scrub their digital footprint. The backdoors he'd installed months ago ensured nothing truly disappeared. They're trying to access their encrypted files, he reported. But I've got copies of everything. Watch. They're about to find something interesting. On their screens, Melissa discovered a folder of recordings. Their own conversations about patient manipulation, carefully preserved and time-stamped. Her attempts to delete them only triggered automatic backups to secured servers. Wade's phone lit up with messages from his network of allies. Janet's documentation provided the historical framework, while current victims added contemporary details. The pattern of fraud stretched back years, each operation building on lessons learned from the previous ones. The evidence goes beyond their current scheme, Ruby explained to investigators. We've uncovered similar operations in 3 states, each ending with victims losing everything. In their increasingly frantic communications, Melissa and Derek's partnership showed fatal cracks. Their attempts to coordinate responses led to accusations and blame. This is your fault, Derek's voice carried through the surveillance feed. Your ambition, your need to expand too quickly. We should have stuck to small-scale operations. My fault? Melissa's laugh held no humor. Who embezzled for his own company? Who couldn't keep his story straight with investors? You're poison, Derek. Always have been. Wade listened to their deteriorating relationship with professional detachment. Like a perfectly timed pour over premium beans, each element contributed to the final result. The media coverage expanded, with local news stations running special reports on wellness industry fraud. Each story seemed to come from a different source, but Wade had orchestrated everything through Ruby's network. The victims deserve to be heard, Ruby told reporters. Their stories show how sophisticated these operations have become. Sarah's research paper sparked multiple investigations, effectively destroying Revival Botanical's credibility in the wellness industry. Professional organizations issued statements distancing themselves from questionable practices and dangerous formulations. Wade watched the destruction unfold from his office, surrounded by the familiar scent of coffee and justice. Each revelation, each piece of evidence, each public reaction had been carefully planned and precisely executed. Boss? Marcus appeared in the doorway. The morning news wants an interview about my story. Should I? No, Wade replied. Let the victims speak. Their voices matter more than mine. Chapter 8. Crema. The mandatory investor meeting Wade had orchestrated became the stage for final revelations. The conference room of Seattle's Grand Hotel filled with faces from Melissa and Derek's carefully cultivated social circle. Janet Wright's testimony came first, her nurse's uniform lending authority to her words. Derek didn't just steal our money, she explained to the stunned audience. He stole our trust, our reputation, our sense of reality. Tommy's presentation screens displayed financial records as Janet spoke, showing the systematic destruction of her career and savings. Melissa helped him, Janet continued. She convinced our friends I was unstable, paranoid. They used the same tactics with their wellness clients. Isolation, manipulation, gradual escalation of demands. The parallels to their current operation hit home. Investors exchanged uncomfortable glances, recognizing patterns from their own interactions with the siblings. Wade's surprise guest arrived during a break, the wellness practitioner who had treated Melissa's mother. The man's appearance shattered Melissa's composure. Miss Sullivan, he said, using her maiden name, your mother believed in natural healing until the end, just like your clients believe in you. Melissa's hands shook as she reached for her water glass. This is harassment. Security. No one's coming, Ruby said quietly. But perhaps you'd like to explain how you adapted his techniques? The gradual dependency, the increasing doses, the financial demands? Grace Sullivan rose next, her evidence organized in devastating chronological order. The video recordings of Derek's early schemes played on screens around the room, his younger self boasting about manipulating desperate people. He called it emotional investment. Grace explained, her voice steady. Make them believe you care. Make them depend on you. Then take everything. Derek's attempts at explanation died in his throat as his own voice filled the room. Younger, but unmistakable. These people want to be fooled. They're begging for it. Our job is to take their money before someone else does. Richard Knox presented last, his sobriety and recovered dignity lending weight to his testimony. The financial records from Derek's embezzlement formed a clear path to Revival Botanical's founding. He didn't just steal money, Knox explained. He stole people's futures, their retirements, their children's college funds. And he used that money to start this wellness scam with his sister. The evidence mounted in precise layers, like the perfect crema on an expertly pulled espresso shot. Each revelation built on the previous ones, creating an inescapable pattern of fraud and manipulation. Melissa attempted damage control, her wellness coach persona cracking under pressure. These are all misunderstandings. Our treatments have helped countless people. Like my chun, Marcus stood up from his seat near the back. My sister died believing your lies. How many others died following your protocols? Sarah Palmer's medical evidence appeared on the screens. Chemical analyses, addiction patterns, documented deaths. The scientific data supported each victim's story, creating a comprehensive picture of deliberate harm. The supplements were designed to create dependency, Sarah explained. Users experienced withdrawal symptoms if they stopped, interpreting this as proof they needed the treatments to survive. Derek, drinking heavily at the conference room bar, made a final attempt at manipulation. This is a coordinated attack on alternative medicine. Big Pharma wants to destroy natural healing. No, Sarah interrupted. This is about science and evidence. Your formulations weren't just ineffective. They were deliberately harmful. Wade watched from the hotel's security office as his gathered evidence demolished their credibility. Like the perfect coffee blend, each element added its own essential note to the final result. Their last potential escape route is ready, Ruby reported. The safe house is fully monitored. And the private airfield? Wade asked. News crews are standing by. They think they're getting an exclusive on corporate fraud. They don't know exactly what's coming. The meeting ended with Melissa and Derek's complete social destruction. Their carefully cultivated image lay in ruins, exposed by the very people they'd tried to silence. What do we do now? Derek demanded as they huddled in a corner. There has to be a way out. Melissa's phone buzzed with a message, apparently from a sympathetic investor offering sanctuary. In reality, another piece of Wade's trap sliding into place. I have a contact, she said, hope coloring her voice. Someone who can help us disappear for a while. Wade listened to their planning through Tommy's surveillance. Like a master barista anticipating customer needs, he had prepared for their desperate final moves. They're taking the bait, Tommy reported. Heading to the safe house now. Good, Wade replied. Let them think they've found an escape. The real show's about to begin. Chapter 9. The Perfect Cup. The safe house sat on the outskirts of Seattle, its ordinary appearance masking Wade's careful preparations. Tommy's surveillance equipment captured Melissa and Derek's arrival, their relief at finding apparent sanctuary visible on the security feeds. We just need to lay low, Derek said, dropping his bag in the living room. Wait for things to blow over. The contact said a private plane's waiting at Miller Airport, Melissa added, checking her phone. We can be gone before anyone realizes. In his command center at Copperbean, Wade watched their false sense of security bloom. Tommy's fingers flew across his keyboard, activating hidden microphones and cameras. Broadcasting now, Tommy confirmed. Their remaining supporters are seeing everything. Melissa and Derek's desperate planning session streamed live to selected viewers, investors, wellness community leaders, and industry contacts who hadn't yet abandoned them. We'll start fresh somewhere else, Derek slurred, pouring another drink. Different names, different products. These idiots never learn. Keep recording, Wade instructed. Let them reveal themselves. The siblings' conversation exposed the depth of their contempt for their victims. Each dismissive comment, each joke about desperate clients, each plan for future scams streamed directly to their remaining defenders. The terminal patients were easiest. Melissa laughed bitterly. So desperate for hope, they'd believe anything. Remember that woman in Phoenix? My chun, Derek replied. Now her brother's causing problems. Should have finished that family off properly. Marcus, watching the feed, gripped his coffee cup tightly. Wade placed a steadying hand on his friend's shoulder. They're digging their own graves, Ruby observed. We don't need to add anything. The next phase began when Melissa received an urgent message. Their private flight was ready early. They needed to leave immediately. This is perfect, Melissa said, grabbing her emergency bag. We'll be gone before Wade's little expose can do any real damage. Their drive to Miller Airport took them past strategically placed news vans. Ruby had tipped off select reporters about a breaking story on corporate fraud, ensuring media presence without revealing the true targets. Something's wrong, Derek muttered, noting the cameras. This doesn't feel right. But Melissa pressed on, their desperation overriding caution. The private airfield's gates opened automatically, leading them directly to their final humiliation. Camera lights blazed as they stepped out of their car. Reporters surged forward, their questions revealing complete knowledge of the siblings' crimes. Ms. Sullivan, did you intentionally formulate addictive supplements? Mr. Sullivan, how many victims lost their life savings to your schemes? What do you say to my Chin's family? Their panic flight was broadcast live across multiple networks. Tommy's leaked emails appeared on news tickers, showing their gleeful discussions about manipulating terminal patients. The timing's perfect, Ruby noted, watching the coverage. Morning shows, prime viewing hours, maximum exposure. Wade had arranged for their victim stories to break simultaneously across all major outlets. The coverage painted a devastating picture of systematic fraud and exploitation. Wellness warriors or deadly deceivers scrolled across screens nationwide. The Coffee King's revenge, justice served hot. Inside the toxic siblings' web of lies, social media exploded with Tommy's released evidence. Their encrypted emails revealed private conversations about Wade's planned accident, discussions of dosage increases, jokes about desperate clients. Public opinion's already against them, Tommy reported, monitoring online reactions. This is just the final nail. Derek attempted to flee to Phoenix, his go-to escape route in past schemes. But Janet waited with a comprehensive civil suit, ready to claim his remaining assets. The paperwork's ready, Ruby confirmed. Janet's lawyers have everything they need. You won't keep a dime? Melissa, abandoned by her brother and exposed to her social circle, faced a different kind of justice. Her carefully cultivated image crumbled completely. Each attempt to restart elsewhere met with anonymous tips to local business groups. The wellness community networks are spreading the word, Sarah reported. She's become a cautionary tale about trust and verification. Wade maintained his silence throughout the media storm. Copper Bean's success doubled as sympathetic coverage painted him as a victim who'd turned personal tragedy into triumph. In his flagship store, Wade hung the framed article about Derek's allergic reaction behind the counter. Not prominently, just visible enough to remind him of justice served. The morning crowd at Copper Bean grew larger after the scandal broke. Customers appreciated the authenticity of a business built on genuine passion and honest work. The perfect cup of coffee can't be rushed, Wade explained to a curious regular. It needs the right ingredients, the right timing, the right temperature. Ruby's network ensured the victims received anonymous restitution. Investment groups pulled their funding. Professional contacts disappeared. The siblings' complete social and professional annihilation unfolded of a perfectly timed pour-over. Melissa's attempt to rebuild her wellness practice in Portland failed within days. Anonymous tips about her history reached potential clients before she could establish herself. She's learning about karma, Marcus observed, preparing the morning's first espresso shots. What goes around really does come around. Derek's legal troubles mounted as former victims gained courage from the media coverage. Each new lawsuit, each police report, each testimony added to his destruction. Wade focused on his coffee, his craft, his community. The betrayal had taught him valuable lessons about patience. Like the perfect roast, some outcomes required careful timing and attention to detail. The security footage from that final morning, Melissa's fake sweetness, Derek's knowing smirk, stayed locked in Wade's office. He didn't need to watch it anymore. Justice, like the perfect cup of coffee, spoke for itself. In the end, Wade's revenge succeeded not through violence or legal proceedings, but through complete social and professional destruction. The siblings who tried to destroy his life found themselves permanently expelled from the circles they'd worked so hard to infiltrate. Each morning, Wade arrived early to check the roasters, greet his staff, and prepare for another day of serving perfect coffee. The bitter memories of betrayal had transformed into something else: appreciation for genuine craftsmanship and authentic relationships. The morning light caught the copper fixtures he'd installed himself, highlighting the care in each detail. Like the perfect coffee blend, revenge was all about timing, temperature, and patience. "Another cup?" he asked a regular customer, reaching for his favorite roast. The customer nodded, glancing at the framed article behind the counter. "You know, Wade, some stories just get better with time." Wade smiled, starting the brew process. He'd learned that the perfect cup of coffee, like the perfect revenge, couldn't be rushed. Some blends simply took time to reach their full potential. Epilogue. 5 years later, the perfect blend. Wade Cooper stood behind the counter of Copper Bean's newest location in downtown San Francisco, carefully adjusting the temperature on a state-of-the-art roaster. The morning sun highlighted the copper fixtures that had become his trademark, each one personally selected to match the original Seattle shop. "The secret's in the timing," he explained to an apprentice barista, demonstrating the precise moment to pull an espresso shot. Too early, and you lose the complexity. Too late, and the bitterness overwhelms everything. Copper Bean had expanded thoughtfully over the past 5 years, growing into a respected regional chain known for its commitment to quality and ethical sourcing. Each new location maintained the intimate atmosphere of the original, with Wade personally training the staff in his philosophy of coffee craftsmanship. Marcus Chun, now Wade's director of operations, entered through the back door, carrying fresh beans from their latest sustainable farming partner. In the years since his sister's story had helped expose Melissa and Derek's schemes, Marcus had channeled his grief into positive action. The My Chun Foundation approved another grant, he announced, setting down the bags. 3 more cancer patients will receive full traditional treatment coverage. The foundation, established with the anonymous restitution from Melissa and Derek's victims, had helped hundreds of families avoid the trap of fraudulent alternative treatments. Marcus served on its board, his experience lending authenticity to their mission of combining proper medical care with genuine holistic support. Sarah's latest research paper got published, Marcus added, showing Wade his tablet. The long-term study on supplement industry reform is making waves. Dr. Sarah Palmer had transformed her role in exposing Revival Botanicals into a career dedicated to consumer protection. Her work with the FDA had led to stricter regulations on alternative medicine claims and mandatory testing for addictive substances and supplements. The shop's door chimed as Ruby Martinez entered, looking professional in her FBI consultant badge. After helping bring down Melissa and Derek's operation, she parlayed her private investigator skills into a specialized role tracking wellness industry fraud. "You're going to love this," she said, settling at the counter. "Remember Janet Wright, Derek's ex-wife? She just got appointed to the state medical board's ethics committee. Her experience with fraud prevention made her the perfect candidate." Wade prepared Ruby's usual drink, an Americano with an extra shot. "How's Tommy doing? Still causing trouble in Silicon Valley?" Ruby grinned. "If by trouble you mean making tech companies actually care about security, then yes. His cybersecurity firm just landed another major contract. Tommy Nguyen had turned his hacking skills legitimate, founding a successful consultancy that specialized in protecting medical records and patient data. His experience with Melissa and Derek's digital trail had shown him the importance of securing sensitive information. He's presenting at a conference next month," Ruby continued, "teaching companies how to protect themselves from the kind of schemes we uncovered. He still uses Revival Botanicals as a case study." The scandal had indeed become a cautionary tale in multiple industries. Business schools taught it in ethics classes. Medical conferences referenced it when discussing alternative medicine regulation. Law enforcement used it to train investigators in following digital money trails. Grace Sullivan had found her own path to healing. After helping expose Derek's college scams, she'd become an advocate for fraud victims, starting a support network that helped people rebuild their lives and confidence after exploitation. Grace's network just opened another chapter, Ruby reported. They're focusing on elderly victims of wellness scams. Richard Knox is helping. Turns out he's great at explaining financial fraud to seniors. Richard Knox, fully recovered from his encounter with Derek, had transformed his experience into expertise. His presentations about recognizing investment fraud helped others avoid the traps he'd fallen into. Wade's phone buzzed with a news alert. Another wellness industry scandal had broken, but this time, the regulatory systems he'd helped establish had caught it early. Sarah's research, Ruby's investigations, and Tommy's security protocols had created an effective defense against such schemes. "Did you see the latest about Melissa?" Ruby asked quietly. Wade nodded. His ex-wife's attempt to rebuild her life had followed a predictable pattern. Each time she tried to establish herself in a new city, her history surfaced through anonymous tips. The wellness community's long memory and improved communication networks ensured she couldn't harm anyone else. "Last I heard, she's working retail in Minnesota," Ruby said, under her maiden name. No social media presence, no wellness coaching, no contact with Derek. Derek's fate had been equally fitting. Janet's civil suit had stripped him of his remaining assets. Multiple fraud charges in different states had finally caught up with him. His attempts to charm his way out of trouble fell flat against the mountain of evidence Tommy had preserved. He tried to pitch a self-help book about redemption, Ruby added, rolling her eyes. No publisher would touch it. Turns out having your emails about exploiting terminal patients made public kills your credibility permanently. The morning rush began, and Wade focused on his craft. Each cup represented his philosophy: attention to detail, respect for the process, and genuine care for the result. The betrayal he'd experienced had ultimately reinforced his commitment to authenticity. A young woman approached the counter, her medical residence badge identifying her as Dr. Chen. "Uncle Marcus told me to try the house blend," she said. "He says it's the best coffee in the city." Wade recognized Mai Chen's daughter, who had chosen to honor her aunt's memory by pursuing oncology. The Mai Chen Foundation had funded her medical school education, turning tragedy into hope for future patients. "First cups on the house," Wade said, beginning his careful preparation. "Your aunt helped us make the world a little safer. We don't forget that." The foundation's work had expanded beyond direct medical assistance. They funded research into integrative medicine, legitimate collaborations between traditional and alternative treatments, properly tested and regulated. Mai's death had sparked changes that saved countless lives. Later that afternoon, Wade hosted a coffee tasting session for local food writers. His reputation had grown beyond the business world. He was now recognized as an authority on ethical sourcing and sustainable farming practices. "The key to great coffee," he explained, demonstrating his roasting technique, "is understanding that shortcuts destroy quality. Real excellence takes time, attention, and respect for the process." The writers nodded, not realizing they were hearing wisdom earned through his experience with Melissa and Derek's downfall. The siblings had tried to take shortcuts, to build success through deception rather than genuine effort. Their destruction had proven the value of authenticity. A business magazine sat on the counter, featuring Copper Bean in its annual Ethical Business Awards. The article praised Wade's commitment to sustainable practices and community involvement, noting how the company had become a model for responsible growth. The Mai Chen Foundation's logo appeared on the shop's donation box, where customers could contribute to cancer patient support programs. Marcus had turned his sister's tragedy into a force for positive change, helping other families avoid similar exploitation. Wade's security cameras still recorded daily operations, but now they represented normal business precautions rather than tools of investigation. Tommy had designed their current system, incorporating lessons learned from exposing Revival Botanical's deceptions. Ruby's FBI work had expanded to international wellness fraud rings, her experience with Melissa and Derek providing a template for investigations. She still dropped by regularly for coffee and updates on their extended network of allies. Sarah's research had evolved into a broader examination of how desperate patients could be protected from fraudulent treatments. Her work helped shape policies that balanced alternative medicine's legitimate practices with strong consumer protections. The afternoon sun caught the framed article behind the counter, the one about Derek's allergic reaction from 5 years ago. Wade kept it as a reminder, not of revenge, but of the importance of patience. A group of business students settled at a corner table, discussing their ethics class assignment. Wade caught fragments about corporate responsibility and the true cost of fraud. His story had become a teaching tool, helping future entrepreneurs understand the value of genuine achievement. The day wound down with a visit from Grace, now a regular speaker at fraud prevention conferences. She turned her experience with Derek into expertise that helped others recognize and avoid similar manipulation. 5 years, she mused, accepting a cup of Wade's latest roast. Sometimes it feels like another lifetime. Wade nodded, understanding perfectly. The events that had revealed Melissa and Derek's true nature seemed distant now, but their lessons remained valuable. Like the perfect coffee blend, experience had transformed bitter moments into something useful and meaningful. As he prepared to close the shop, Wade reflected on how his pursuit of justice had evolved into something larger than personal revenge. The systems and safeguards created in response to Revival Botanicals' exposure protected countless potential victims. Marcus finished updating the My Chin Foundation's display near the entrance. The photo of his sister now watched over a message of hope rather than a warning about fraud. Her story had become a catalyst for positive change in both medical and business communities. Tommy's cybersecurity protocols, Sarah's research papers, Ruby's investigative techniques, and Grace's advocacy work had combined to create a lasting defense against wellness industry fraud. Their collaboration had grown into a network of professionals dedicated to protecting vulnerable people. Wade's phone buzzed with one final news alert, another fraud prevention success story. The systems they'd helped establish had caught another potential scam early, preventing the kind of damage Melissa and Derek had once inflicted so easily. Closing time, he called to his staff, beginning the careful process of shutting down the equipment. Each machine received the same attention to detail he'd always insisted on, maintaining the standards that had built Copper Bean's reputation. The copper fixtures gleamed in the evening light as Wade completed his final checks. 5 years had transformed his business, his allies, and his understanding of justice. Like the perfect cup of coffee, life's most important lessons required time to develop their full complexity. Tomorrow would bring new customers, new challenges, and new opportunities to maintain the standards he'd always believed in. Wade smiled, knowing that some blends, whether of coffee or experience, truly did improve with time. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.